The door splintered with a deafening crack. Shards of wood flying like shrapnel across my cabin's living room. Karen Pritchard stood in the doorway, her face a mask of righteous fury, clutching a clipboard like a weapon. "You're in violation. Ethan Cole," she shrieked, her voice slicing through the quiet of my rural Tennessee retreat. "That firewood stack is 6 inches too close to the property line." My heart pounded not from fear, but from the sheer audacity. Behind me, Judge Amelia Thornton, a federal judge and my old friend, sat calmly sipping coffee, her eyes narrowing as Karen stormed in. The air thickened with tension, the kind that promises a storm before the first drop falls. I'd spent years building this cabin on the outskirts of Willow Creek, a sleepy farming community where folks valued privacy over petty regulations. The local HOA, led by Karen, was a recent blighted group of busybodies obsessed with controlling every blade of grass. My property, a 5-acre plot nestled against a ridge of oak and pine, was my sanctuary. I'd moved here after losing my wife, Lily, to cancer 3 years ago, seeking solitude to heal. The cabin was my labor of love, hand-hewn logs, a stone fireplace, and a porch overlooking fields that stretched to the horizon. But Karen had other plans. She'd been hounding me for months, first about my untrimmed hedges, then my gravel driveway, and now this firewood nonsense. I'd ignored her letters, her emails, her knocks at my door. I wasn't part of her HOA. My land predated their rules. But Karen didn't care about facts. She cared about power. And now, she'd crossed a line, smashing into my home like she owned it. "Karen, you've got no right to be here," I said, my voice steady but laced with fire. "This is private property." "Private?" she scoffed, waving her clipboard. "You think you're above the rules. This community has standards." Her eyes darted to the firewood visible through the window, stacked neatly by my shed. "That pile's a hazard. It's coming down today, or you'll face fines." Judge Amelia set her coffee down, the clink of porcelain cutting through Karen's tirade. "Ma'am," she said, her tone calm but edged with authority, "you've just committed criminal trespass. I suggest you leave." Karen froze, her gaze snapping to Amelia. "And who are you?" she demanded, her voice dripping with disdain. Amelia stood, her presence commanding despite her casual sweater and jeans. "Judge Amelia Thornton, U.S. District Court, and you, M.S. Pritchard, are in serious trouble." The room felt like it was holding its breath. Karen's bravado faltered, but only for a moment. She doubled down, stepping further into my cabin, her boots grinding sawdust into the floor. "This isn't over, Ethan. You can't hide behind some fancy guest. The HOA will have its way." I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to physically remove her. Amelia's hand on my arm stopped me. "Let her dig her own grave," she whispered. I nodded, but my blood was boiling. This wasn't just about firewood. It was about my home, my peace, my right to exist without someone's rulebook suffocating me. Karen's invasion wasn't random. I'd heard whispers in town Karen's HOA was pushing to expand its control, targeting older properties like mine to force compliance or drive owners out. My land, with its prime views and untouched forest, was a prize. She'd been gunning for me ever since I'd refused to sign her petition last spring. But breaking into my home, that was a new low. Amelia pulled out her phone, her fingers moving with the precision of someone who'd seen it all. "I'm calling the sheriff," she said, her voice low but firm. Karen's eyes widened, but she didn't back down. Instead, she started scribbling on her clipboard, muttering about violations and lawsuits. I couldn't believe her nerve. The sheriff's station was 10 miles away, a small outpost serving Willow Creek and the surrounding farms. I knew Sheriff Dan Harper, a decent man who preferred fishing to paperwork. He'd laugh at Karen's antics, but he'd also enforce the law. As Amelia spoke to him, I watched Karen pace my living room, her confidence cracking but not breaking. She was like a dog with a bone, too stubborn to see she'd gone too far. "Ethan," Amelia said, hanging up. "Dan's on his way. He's bringing a deputy. They'll handle this." Karen snorted. "Handle what? I'm enforcing community standards. You're the ones breaking the law." I wanted to laugh, but the absurdity of it choked me. This woman had smashed my door, invaded my home, and now she was playing the victim. I glanced at the splintered wood, my chest tightening. That door had been Lily's favorite part of the cabin. She'd carved our initials into the frame the day we moved in. Now it was ruined. Amelia caught my look and squeezed my shoulder. "We'll fix this," she said softly. "All of it." Karen's clipboard clattered as she pointed at me. "You think you're untouchable, Ethan? I've got half the town behind me. We'll see who wins." Her words stung, not because I believed her, but because I knew she wasn't entirely wrong. Willow Creek was changing. New families were moving in, drawn by cheap land and the promise of a quiet life. With them came Karen's kind people who wanted to mold the town into their vision of perfection. My cabin, my way of life, didn't fit their mold. As the sound of sirens grew closer, I felt the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just about Karen or her HOA. It was about fighting for what was mine, for the life I'd built from grief and sweat. I looked at Amelia, her calm resolve grounding me. She'd seen worse in her courtroom: corrupt officials, corporate bullies, desperate defendants. If anyone could help me navigate this, it was her. The sheriff's truck pulled up, gravel crunching under its tires. Karen straightened, her face smug, as if she thought Dan was here to back her up. I almost pitied her. Almost. Sheriff Dan Harper stepped out of his truck, his boots heavy on the gravel. His deputy, a young woman named Clara with a no-nonsense ponytail, followed close behind. Karen rushed to the porch, her clipboard flapping like a battle flag. "Sheriff, thank goodness you're here," she exclaimed, her voice pitched high with indignation. "This man's been defying HOA regulations for months. His firewood's a danger to the community." Dan's weathered face stayed neutral as he scanned the scenery-shattered door, the wood chips scattered across my porch, and Karen's flushed face. He tipped his hat slightly to Amelia, recognizing her from a case years ago. "Judge Thornton," he said, his voice calm but curious. "Didn't expect to see you here." Amelia stepped forward, her presence steady as an oak. "Sheriff, MS." Pritchard forced her way into Ethan's home. "She's trespassing, and she's damaged his property. I'd like her removed." Karen's jaw dropped. "Removed? I'm protecting this community. Ethan's the one breaking the rules." I couldn't hold back anymore. "Karen, I'm not in your HOA. My land's grandfathered in. You've got no jurisdiction here, and you sure as hell had no right to break my door." Dan raised a hand, silencing us both. "Let's take this one step at a time. Karen, you're saying you entered Ethan's property to enforce HOA rules." "Exactly," she snapped, thrusting her clipboard at him. "Look at this. Firewood too close to the line. Unapproved shed color. And don't get me started on his mailbox. It's a disgrace." Clara, the deputy, stifled a smirk as she examined the splintered doorframe. "Ma'am, did you break this door to get in?" Karen hesitated, her eyes darting. "It was already loose. I just pushed it." "Pushed it?" I laughed, bitter. "You swung a crowbar. Karen, I saw you through the window." Dan's eyes narrowed. "A crowbar? That's a new one. Karen, you got one on you." Her face reddened, but she didn't answer. Clara stepped into the cabin, spotting the crowbar leaning against my couch. "Found it," she called, holding it up with gloved hands. The metal glinted in the sunlight. Undeniable evidence. Amelia crossed her arms. "Sheriff, I witnessed the entire incident." MS. Pritchard forced entry without permission, citing rules that don't apply to Ethan's property. This is criminal trespass and vandalism. At minimum. Karen's confidence cracked like thin ice. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I have authority." Dan sighed, rubbing his temple. "Karen, I've told you before, your HOA doesn't cover every inch of Willow Creek. Ethan's right. His land's exempt. And breaking into someone's home, that's not authority. That's a crime." The truth was starting to sink in, but Karen wasn't done. She spun to me, her voice venomous. "You think this is over? I've got the town council on my side. They'll back me up. Your little judge friend won't save you." Amelia's smile was cold. "MS. Pritchard, I've seen people like you in my courtroom. You mistake control for justice. It never ends well." Dan nodded to Clara. "Cuff her. We'll sort this out at the station." Karen's shriek echoed across the valley as Clara snapped handcuffs on her wrists. "This is outrageous. I'm protecting property values. You'll hear from my lawyer." As Clara led her to the truck, Karen's clipboard fell to the ground, pages scattering in the wind. I picked one up, scanning her meticulous note sketches of my property, measurements of my firewood stack, even complaints about my dog, Rusty, barking too loud. It was obsessive, chilling. This wasn't just about rules. Karen wanted control, and she'd targeted me to prove it. Dan stayed behind, his expression apologetic. "Ethan, I'm sorry about this. Karen's been stirring up trouble since she moved here 2 years ago. I'll need a statement from both of you." Amelia nodded. "Of course. But, Sheriff, this isn't just about today. I suspect MS. Pritchard's actions are part of a larger pattern. Ethan's not the only one she's harassed." Dan frowned, his gaze drifting to the scattered papers. "You're not wrong. I've had complaints from other folks, old-timers like you, Ethan, who don't bow to her HOA. She's been pushing to annex more land, claiming it's for community improvement." My stomach twisted. I'd heard rumors about Karen's plans, but hadn't realized how far she'd gone. My land was valuable 5 acres of prime Tennessee soil, with a creek running through it. If she could force me out, she'd have a blueprint to take down others. Amelia's voice cut through my thoughts. "Sheriff, I'd like to see the HOA's charter and any records of their recent activities. If they're overstepping, we need to know." Dan nodded. "I'll dig into it. Ethan, you want to press charges?" I looked at my ruined door. The initials Lily and I had carved now splintered. "Damn right I do." As Dan headed to his truck, Amelia turned to me. "This isn't just about Karen. She's got allies, people who profit from her schemes. We need to find out who." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Karen's invasion was personal, but it was also a symptom of something bigger. Willow Creek was my home, and I'd fight to keep it. But first, I had to fix my door and figure out how deep this rabbit hole went. The next morning, the air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. I stood on my porch, nailing a temporary board over the shattered doorframe. Rusty, my old hound, lay nearby, his tail thumping lazily. Amelia was inside, poring over a stack of documents Dan had dropped off: HOA charters, meeting minutes, and complaints filed against Karen. The sun was barely up, but the fight was already brewing. Amelia called me in, her voice sharp. "Ethan, you need to see this." She held up a page, her finger tapping a highlighted section. "Karen's HOA has been lobbying the town council to rezone parts of Willow Creek, including your land. They're claiming it's for public safety and economic growth. I scanned the document, my blood running cold. The proposal listed my property as a priority acquisition for a new community center. They want to bulldoze my cabin. I asked, my voice tight. Not just yours, Amelia said. There's a dozen properties targeted, all owned by folks who've refused to join the HOA. They're using regulatory pressure to force sales. I sank into a chair, the weight of it hitting me. This wasn't just Karen's vendetta. It was a calculated land grab, dressed up as community improvement. My cabin, my 5 acres, my sanctuary, they were in the crosshairs of greed. We need to confront this head-on, Amelia said. The town council's meeting tomorrow night. Karen's presenting her rezoning plan. If we don't show up and fight, they'll steamroll you. I nodded, but my mind was racing. The council wasn't all bad folks like Old Man Jenkins and Sarah Tate. A local farmer. Had always been fair. But Karen had sway, and I'd heard she'd cozied up to Councilman Roy Bennett, a slick developer with dollar signs in his eyes. If they were in cahoots, this was bigger than I'd thought. That afternoon, I drove into town to rally support. Willow Creek's main street was a slice of Americana feed store. Diner. A single stoplight blinking lazily. I stopped at the diner, where locals gathered over coffee and pie. Inside, I found Millie, the owner, wiping down counters. She'd lived here her whole life, like me, and her farm was on Karen's list too. Millie, you hear about this rezoning nonsense? I asked, sliding onto a stool. She sighed, tossing her rag aside. Yeah, Karen's been sniffing around my place, complaining about my barn's paint. Says it's unsightly. Now I hear she wants my land for some fancy pavilion. I filled her in on Karen's break-in and the HOA's plans. Millie's eyes narrowed. That woman's trouble. I'll talk to the others, Jenkins, the Hendersons, anyone who's been here longer than her HOA. We'll be at that meeting. By evening, word had spread. A dozen of us farmers, shopkeepers, old-timers met at Millie's diner to plan. Amelia laid out the strategy. We'd present evidence of Karen's overreach, challenge the rezoning, and demand transparency about the HOA's funding. Rumors swirled that Roy Bennett was bankrolling Karen, hoping to flip our land for condos. If we could prove it, we'd have leverage. The next night, the town hall was packed, the air thick with tension. Karen stood at the podium, her voice syrupy as she pitched her vision for Willow Creek's gleaming community center. New roads, higher property values. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others skeptical. Roy Bennett sat in the front row, his suit out of place among flannel and denim. Amelia and I sat near the back, waiting for the public comment period. When it came, I stood, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Karen's HOA doesn't speak for us, I said, facing the council. She broke into my home, claiming rules that don't apply. Now she wants to take our land for her own gain. This isn't about community, it's about control. The room erupted. Some cheering, others shouting in protest. Karen's face twisted, but she didn't back down. Ethan Cole's a troublemaker. She snapped. His property's a blight, and I'm protecting this town. Amelia stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. MS. Pritchard's actions are illegal. Her HOA's charter doesn't cover half the properties she's targeting, and her rezoning plan benefits private developers, not the public. She held up a document of financial record showing payments from Roy Bennett's company to the HOA. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Roy shot to his feet, his face red. This is slander. I've done nothing wrong. Then explain these transactions, Amelia said, her tone icy. Or would you prefer I subpoena them in court? The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Karen's eyes darted to Roy, panic flickering. The council chair, Sarah Tate banged her gavel. We'll review these claims, she said. This meeting's adjourned until we investigate. As the crowd dispersed, Karen stormed over, her finger jabbing at me. You think you've won? I'll bury you. Ethan. You and your judge friend. Amelia didn't flinch. Threaten him again. MS. Pritchard. And you'll face more than a trespass charge. Karen spun on her heel, storming out with Roy trailing behind. I felt a flicker of hope, but the fight was far from over. Karen wasn't alone, and she wasn't giving up. The fallout from the town hall meeting buzzed through Willow Creek like a swarm of angry bees. By morning, my phone was ringing off the hook, neighbors offering support, others warning me to watch my back. Karen and Roy weren't backing down. Rumors spread that they were planning a new push, this time with legal muscle. I found a letter in my mailbox, not from the HOA, but from a Nashville law firm, demanding I comply with community standards or face a lawsuit. It was a scare tactic, but it hit hard. Amelia stayed at the cabin, her presence a steady anchor. Over coffee, she dissected the letter. This is fluff, she said, tossing it onto the table. They're bluffing to intimidate you. But we need to counterattack. If Roy's funding Karen, we need proof, something undeniable. I nodded, but my gut churned. The cabin felt less like a sanctuary now, more like a battleground. Rusty sensed my mood, nudging my hand with his wet nose. I scratched his ears, trying to focus. Where do we start? I asked. The money trail, Amelia said. Roy's company, Bennett Development, has been buying up land around Willow Creek. If we can link his payments to Karen's HOA, we can expose their scheme. We spent the day digging through public records at the county clerk's office. Millie and Jenkins joined us, their faces grim but determined. We found what we needed, tax filings showing Bennett Development had funneled thousands into the HOA under consulting fees. Another document revealed Roy had applied for permits to build condos on land adjacent to mine land he didn't yet own. It was a clear motive: force us out, rezone, and profit. That night, I couldn't sleep. The cabin's quiet, once comforting, now felt oppressive. I stepped onto the porch, the stars bright above the ridge. Lily used to love nights like this. She'd sit here, sketching the fields, dreaming of the life we'd build. Now, I was fighting to keep that dream alive. I clenched my fists, vowing not to let Karen and Roy take it. The next day, we took our findings to Sheriff Dan. He listened, his jaw tightening as we laid out the evidence. This is big, he said. I'll pass it to the district attorney, but you need to be careful. Roy's got friends in high places. Amelia's eyes gleamed. So do I. We planned our next move, a public rally outside the town hall before the council's follow-up meeting. Millie spread the word, and by evening, dozens of locals had pledged to show up. Farmers, shopkeepers, even kids from the high school. They were tired of Karen's tyranny. We printed flyers, citing the evidence against Roy and the HOA. I felt a spark of hope, but also dread. Karen wasn't the type to go quietly. The rally was chaos. Over 100 people gathered, holding signs that read, "Save Willow Creek" and "No HOA Tyranny." Karen and Roy arrived, flanked by a lawyer in a sharp suit. Karen's face was pale, but her eyes burned with defiance. She grabbed a megaphone, shouting over the crowd, "You're all being misled. Ethan Cole's a liar, and his judge friend is corrupt." The crowd booed, but Karen kept going, her voice shrill. "We're building a better future. You're standing in the way of progress." Amelia took the megaphone from Millie, her voice steady and commanding. "MS. Pritchard, you've abused your power, broken the law, and targeted innocent people for profit. We have proof: financial records, permits, your own HOA minutes. Step down, or face the consequences. The crowd roared, but Roy stepped forward, his smile slick. This is a misunderstanding. My company's invested in Willow Creek's future. We're not the enemy. I couldn't stay silent. I grabbed the megaphone. Roy, you're buying our land out from under us. You and Karen want to turn this town into a strip mall. My Hamami wife's memorialist for sale. The crowd erupted again, louder this time. Karen's lawyer whispered in her ear, and she paled further. For the first time, she looked scared. But Roy wasn't done. He raised his hands, playing to the crowd. Let's calm down. The council will decide what's best. As the rally broke up, I saw Karen and Roy huddle with their lawyer, their faces tense. Amelia leaned in. They're rattled, Ethan. But they'll hit back harder now. She was right. That night, I got a call from Jenkins. His barn had been vandalized, red paint smeared across the doors, spelling out sell or else. My heart sank. This was retaliation, and I knew I was next. The vandalism at Jenkins' barn was a gut punch, but it lit a fire under Willow Creek. By morning, the town was buzzing with outrage. Neighbors dropped by my cabin with coffee and casseroles, offering support and stories of their own run-ins with Karen's HOA. Millie's fence had been torn down last month. The Hendersons got a $500 fine for planting unauthorized roses. Karen's reign of terror was unraveling, but she wasn't done yet. Amelia and I met with the district attorney, a sharp woman named Laura Vance, at the sheriff's station. We laid out everything, the financial records, the rezoning plan, Karen's break-in, and now the vandalism. Laura's eyes narrowed as she flipped through our evidence. This is enough to open an investigation, she said. But we need more to tie Roy directly to the vandalism. He's slippery. Amelia nodded. He's careful, but Karen's not. She's the weak link. If we can get her to crack, we'll get Roy. Laura agreed to expedite the case, but warned us to stay vigilant. People like Roy don't play fair, she said. Watch your back. That afternoon, I reinforced my cabin's new door with steel bolts and set up a trail camera by the shed. Rusty paced the yard, his hackles up like he sensed trouble. I couldn't shake the feeling that something worse was coming. Karen's desperation was palpable. She lost the crowd at the rally, and the council was leaning against her. But desperate people are dangerous. That night, I got a text from Millie. Check your mailbox. I grabbed a flashlight and headed out, Rusty at my heels. Inside the mailbox was an envelopino stamp. No address. Just my name scrawled in angry red ink. I opened it, my hand shaking. It was a photo of my cabin, taken from the ridge, with a single word written across it, leave. I showed it to Amelia, who didn't blink. This is intimidation, she said. They're trying to scare you into selling. We need to take this to Laura. The next day, we handed the photo to the DA. She promised to analyze it for fingerprints and check local security footage for whoever delivered it. But before we could leave, Dan burst into the station, his face grim. Ethan, you need to get home. Your shed's on fire. My heart stopped. I raced back to the cabin, Amelia in the passenger seat, as sirens wailed in the distance. When we arrived, flames were licking the shed's roof. My firewood stack engulfed. Neighbors were already there, forming a bucket brigade from the creek. I joined them, hauling water, my lungs burning from smoke. By the time the fire truck arrived, the shed was a smoldering ruin. Dan pulled me aside. This wasn't an accident. We found a gas can in the woods. It's got Karen's initials on it. Amelia's jaw tightened. That's enough for an arrest. Arson's a felony. I stared at the wreckage, my chest tight. That shed held Lily's old gardening tools, her sketches, memories I couldn't replace. Karen hadn't just attacked my property, she'd attacked my past. My fists clenched. But Amelia's hand on my arm kept me grounded. "We'll get her," she said. "Legally." By evening, Karen was in custody. Dan had caught her trying to slip out of town, her car packed with suitcases. At the station, she denied everything, claiming the gas can was stolen. But her story fell apart when Clara found a receipt for gasoline in her purse, dated that morning. Roy, meanwhile, distanced himself, issuing a statement through his lawyer denying involvement. The town was on edge, waiting for the council's final vote on the rezoning. Amelia and I spent the night preparing, gathering statements from neighbors and organizing evidence. Millie rallied more supporters, and by morning, we had a coalition of 50 people ready to pack the town hall. The meeting was electric. Karen wasn't there, she was still in jail, but Roy took the podium, his charm dialed up. "I understand your concerns," he said, his voice smooth. "But progress requires sacrifice. My plan will bring jobs, growth, a future for Willow Creek." I stood, my voice shaking with anger. "Your plan burns down sheds and threatens families. You and Karen tried to bully us out of our homes. We're not sacrificing anything." The crowd cheered, drowning out Roy's response. Sarah Tate banged her gavel, her face stern. "We've reviewed the evidence. The rezoning proposal is denied, and we're launching an audit of the HOA's finances." Roy's smile vanished. The room erupted in applause. But I knew this wasn't the end. Karen was down, but Roy was still standing, and he wasn't the type to give up. Karen's arrest sent shockwaves through Willow Creek. But the fight was far from over. Roy Bennett was still free, his development company untarnished in the eyes of those who didn't know better. The council's rejection of the rezoning plan was a victory, but it felt hollow with my shed in ashes and Lily's memories reduced to soot. I stood in the wreckage the next morning, salvaging what I could: a charred sketchbook, a rusted trowel. Rusty whined at my side, sensing my grief. Amelia was relentless, already planning the next step. "Roy's the head of this snake," she said, pacing my kitchen. "Karen was his enforcer, but he's the one pulling the strings. We need to take him down." "How?" I asked, my voice rough. "He's got money, lawyers, connections. We're just a bunch of farmers and shopkeepers." She smiled, a glint in her eye. "You've got me, and I've got the law." We spent the day strategizing with Laura Vance, the DA. She'd built a case against Karen for arson and trespass. But Roy was trickier. His financial ties to the HOA were damning, but not enough for criminal charges yet. Laura suggested we focus on his permits. If he's been fast-tracking approvals through corrupt means, we can nail him for fraud or bribery, she said. Millie and Jenkins dug into Roy's past deals, uncovering a pattern. He'd done this before, targeting small towns, using HOAs or local proxies to pressure landowners, then swooping in with lowball offers. In one Kentucky town, he'd bankrupted a family by tying them up in lawsuits. The thought of him doing that to Willow Creek fueled my anger. We decided to go public. Millie knew a reporter from a Nashville paper, a guy named Tom who'd grown up in a town like ours. He met us at the diner, his notebook ready. "This is big," he said after we showed him the evidence bank records, the gas can, the threatening photo. "I'll need corroboration, but if this checks out, it's front-page news." While Tom worked his sources, Amelia and I prepared for Karen's arraignment. She'd been released on bail, thanks to Roy's lawyer, and was due in court the next day. I dreaded seeing her, but Amelia insisted we attend. "She's rattled," she said. "If we can get her to turn on Roy, we'll have him." The courthouse was a small brick building, packed with locals eager for the drama. Karen stood at the defendant's table, her usual swagger gone. Her lawyer argued for leniency, claiming she'd acted out of community zeal. Amelia, sitting beside me, snorted. Zeal doesn't burn sheds, she muttered. When the HOA colleague of Amelia's asked Karen if she had anything to say, she hesitated, her eyes darting to Roy in the back row. For a moment, I thought she'd crack. But then she straightened, her voice defiant. I did what I had to for Willow Creek. Ethan Cole's the real threat, stirring up trouble. The judge wasn't impressed. He set a trial date and warned her to stay away from my property. As we left, Roy approached, his smile oily. Ethan, let's talk. I can make this go away. New shed, new door, cash for your trouble. I stepped closer, my voice low. You think you can buy me? My wife's memory was in that shed. You and Karen crossed a line. His smile faded. Be careful, Ethan. You don't know who you're messing with. Amelia pulled me away before I could swing. He's baiting you, she whispered. Don't give him the satisfaction. That night, Tom's article hit the web. Headlined Small Town Tyranny, HOA Scandal Rocks Willow Creek. It detailed Karen's crimes, Roy's financial ties, and the rezoning scheme. The response was immediate. Calls flooded the sheriff's station, demanding Roy's investigation. Social media lit up, with locals sharing their own stories of HOA harassment. Even Karen's allies started distancing themselves. But Roy wasn't done. The next morning, I found a new letter in my mailbox, not a threat this time, but a lawsuit. Bennett Development was suing me for defamation, claiming I'd spread lies about their legitimate business practices. The sum was staggering, $500. 000. My heart sank. I could barely afford a new shed, let alone a legal battle. Amelia read the lawsuit, her face calm. This is a scare tactic, she said. They're trying to bankrupt you before you can fight back. We'll countersue for arson, trespass, emotional distress, everything. I nodded, but the weight of it was crushing. Willow Creek was rallying, but Roy's deep pockets and deeper connections made him a formidable enemy. I looked out at my land, the fields Lily loved, and felt a surge of resolve. This was my home. I'd fight for it, no matter the cost. Roy's lawsuit hit like a sledgehammer, but it also galvanized Willow Creek. The town rallied in ways I hadn't expected. Neighbors dropped off donations, cash, tools, even lumber to rebuild my shed. Millie organized a Rebuild Ethan's Sanctuary Day, with dozens of locals showing up to clear debris and lay a new foundation. Kids painted signs that read, "Stand with Ethan," and Jenkins brought his tractor to haul away the charred remains. For the first time since Karen's invasion, I felt hope. Amelia was a whirlwind, drafting our countersuit with precision. She included every grievance, Karen's trespass, the arson, the threats, and Roy's role in bankrolling the HOA's harassment. We're not just defending you, she said, her pen flying across legal pads. We're exposing a pattern of corruption. Roy's done this in other towns. Willow Creek's where he stops. Tom's article had gone viral, picked up by national outlets. Reporters descended on Willow Creek, their cameras flashing at the town hall and my cabin. Karen, out on bail, had gone silent. Her house shuttered. Roy, however, was everywhere, giving interviews about his vision for the town and painting me as a troublemaker. His charm fooled some, but not the locals who'd lived through Karen's reign. Laura Vance called with news. Karen had agreed to a plea deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, she'd testify against Roy, confirming he'd paid her to target my property and others. She's scared, Laura said. Roy's trying to pin everything on her. She's ready to talk. The news was a lifeline, but I knew Roy wouldn't go down easily. His lawsuit was moving forward, and his lawyer was ruthless, digging into my past for dirt. They found nothing. Me life was an open book, a mechanic turned farmer, widowed, living quietly. But the legal fees were draining my savings. Amelia waived her fees, But court costs were piling up. The rebuild day lifted my spirits. Millie's Diner supplied food, and Jenkins led a crew to frame the new shed. Sarah Tate, the council chair, stopped by with a surprise. The council had voted to dissolve the HOA, citing its abusive practices. Cheers erupted, but I knew it was only half the battle. Roy's company was still a threat, and his lawsuit loomed. That night, Amelia and I sat on my porch, the new shed taking shape in the moonlight. "We're close, Ethan," she said. "Karen's testimony will tie Roy to the arson. If we can get his financial records, we'll prove fraud." I nodded, but my mind was on Lily. She'd loved this land, its quiet beauty. I couldn't let Roy take it. "What if we lose?" I asked, my voice low. Amelia's eyes softened. "We won't. This isn't just about you, it's about everyone Karen and Roy hurt. The truth's on our side." The next day, Laura called us to the DA's office. Karen was there, looking smaller without her clipboard or bravado. Her lawyer read the plea. She'd serve 6 months, with probation, and testify that Roy had orchestrated the rezoning scheme, paid for the gas can, and approved the threats. Her voice shook as she spoke, avoiding my eyes. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she mumbled. "Roy said it was for the town." I wanted to hate her, but all I felt was pity. She'd been a pawn, blinded by her own need for control. Roy was the real villain, and he was still out there, spinning lies. Laura turned to us. "With Karen's testimony, we're charging Roy with conspiracy and fraud. But he's got a top-tier legal team. This'll be a fight." Amelia nodded. "Good. I love a fight." As we left, I saw Roy's car parked across the street, his silhouette inside. He was watching us. My stomach twisted, but I straightened, meeting his gaze through the windshield. He drove off, but the message was clear. He wasn't done. Back at the cabin, I found a package on my porch, no return address. Inside was a single photo of Lily and me, taken years ago on this very land. A note was pinned to it. "You can't win." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was personal. The photo of Lily and me, with its chilling note, sat heavy in my hands. I showed it to Amelia, whose face hardened. "This is intimidation," she said. "Roy's desperate. He knows we've got him cornered." She called Laura, who promised to add witness tampering to Roy's charges. But I couldn't shake the violation of that photo. Someone had dug into my past, weaponizing my grief. Willow Creek was a powder keg. The national media attention had split the town. Some saw me as a hero, others as a troublemaker dragging the town's name through the mud. Roy leaned into the divide, hosting a community forum to clear the air. It was a PR stunt, but it drew a crowd. Amelia and I went, knowing we had to face him head-on. The forum was held in the high school gym, packed with locals and reporters. Roy stood at a podium, his suit crisp, his smile practiced. "I'm here for Willow Creek," he said, his voice dripping with sincerity. "Ethan Cole's lies have hurt this town. My company wants to build a future, not tear it down." The crowd was mixed. Some clapped, others booed. I stood, my voice carrying over the noise. "Roy, you paid Karen to burn my shed. You threatened me, my neighbors, our homes. You're not building a future, you're stealing one." The gym erupted, shouts drowning out Roy's response. Amelia took the mic, her presence silencing the chaos. "Mr. Bennett, we have bank records, permits, and Karen Pritchard's testimony. Your scheme is over. Step down, or face the consequences." Roy's smile faltered, but he recovered, pointing at me. "This man's a liar, and his judge friend's using her power to bully me." Amelia didn't blink. "I'm a federal judge, Mr. Bennett. I don't bully. I uphold the law." and the law's coming for you." The crowd roared, and Roy's lawyer hustled him out. That night, Laura called with big news. The DA had seized Roy's financial records, uncovering payments not just to Karen, but to a council member who'd pushed the rezoning. Roy was arrested the next morning, charged with fraud, conspiracy, and arson. The trial was swift. Karen's testimony was damning, detailing how Roy had orchestrated everything, paying her to harass landowners, forging documents, even suggesting the fire to send a message. Roy's lawyers fought hard, but the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted, sentenced to 7 years. His company dismantled. Karen served her time and left Willow Creek, her reputation in tatters. The aftermath was quiet but profound. The HOA was gone, its charter revoked. The council passed protections for legacy landowners, ensuring no one could be bullied like I was. My shed was rebuilt, stronger than before, with a new door frame where I carved Lily's initials again. Neighbors helped paint it, turning it into a symbol of our fight. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, Amelia and I sat on my porch, Rusty at our feet. "You did it, Ethan," she said. "You saved this town." "We did it," I corrected, my voice thick. "And Lily's memory." Amelia smiled. She'd be proud. I looked out at the land, the creek glinting in the dusk. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was homey, a place where people stood together, where greed couldn't win. I'd fought for my sanctuary and won, not just for me, but for everyone who called this town home. The stars came out, bright and steady, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace.